With all the big buzzing business news of the day, I'm Vikram Oza with this edition of Business at 9. And this Friday, we've got the big buzzing business news for sure. The first piece is coming through from Paris. The Court of Arbitration for Sports is now set to hear that plea over a joint silver, or the possibility of getting a joint silver. It's an appeal filed by wrestler Vinesh Phogat, and the body, as far as this court is concerned, is to deliver its verdict before the end of the Olympics, which is, of course, this Sunday. The top Indian lawyer, Harish Salve, is set to represent the Indian Olympic Association and Vinesh Phogat. Vinesh Phogat, on her part, has become the first Indian woman wrestler to reach an Olympic final. She was, of course, disqualified for being overweight by 100 grams. She has now filed an appeal for a joint silver in the Court of Arbitration for Sports. And my colleague Karishma is joining us to tell us about this case. She's joining us on the phone line. Karishma, if you can put in perspective where we stand on this case and what has transpired and where we've gotten so far with this matter.
Well, no, there has been no past proceedings. There have been, instances where players have been reinstated, but for different reasons. This is, I think, possibly the first time that something like this is happening. A case has been registered. We'll have to wait and see what happens because the point that we are fighting on, that Dinesh's side is fighting on, is the fact that we are not asking to replace someone. We are not asking to replace someone's medal. We are asking for a shared silver because she had qualified for the finals fair and square. But on the other hand, what the other side is going to argue is the fact that these rules were not made, just yesterday. They have been in place for quite some time and they have been followed to the T for a very long time. So let's see what sort of a precedent the Court of Arbitration for Sports is willing to set, because this is a very important moment. We've got the best in India to represent Vinesh, whether it's Vidushpat Singhania or Harish Salve. So we'll really have to wait and see what comes out of this hearing. The Court of Arbitration of Sport has said that by the end of Olympics is when we are expecting an order. So that could be any day after the hearing is over, because Olympics ends day after tomorrow. So we'll wait and see what happens.
Yes, Karishma, it's going to be very keenly watched, the verdict in this case, and whether it's going to set any kind of precedence. And indeed, the Prime Minister had spoken to the Indian Olympic Association president and had asked her to take this up at the highest level, which is indeed what has happened. And now that we have Mr. Salve representing the Indian Olympic Association and, of course, Vinesh Phogat in this matter, we'll see what the outcome is. Karishma Singh joining us from Paris. Many thanks. But let's discuss this as well. Sports journalist Mr. Raman is joining us to take us through what could happen in this particular case. Mr. Raman, help us understand first what kind of arguments you expect Harish Salve to make in this appeal at the Court of Arbitration for Sports, because there are rules, like my colleague Karishma was saying, and those rules have been followed. So in terms of arguments, what do you see happen over here?
Look, honestly, I feel that it's going to be extremely difficult to get the verdict in favor of Vinesh Phogat, and I also feel that this this entire approach to the CAS is more a kind of a measure to show that the government is actually doing something to support her. Now, both Thomas Bach, as you can see on the screen now, and also the president of the World Wrestling Federation, UWW, have both actually clarified categorically that it's very difficult or impossible for them to do anything, because there has been a violation of the rules, and the rules stand as things are. So therefore, I fail to see what could be the grounds on the basis, unless there are things which we do not know. So I'll give you an example. There is that 15-minute time limit for the weighing in to actually happen. Now, hypothetically, had that been closed earlier, maybe 2 minutes or 3 minutes before time, then we would have a case to argue, saying that, look, the weigh-in did not happen for the full duration of 15 minutes. Had she had 3 more minutes, she could have lost that 100 grams or whatever. But those are things that we don't know, and nobody from the Indian side has made an argument to the effect that no rules were violated, and this was a raw deal that was got. In fact, both PT Usha and Dr. Pardiwala at their interaction with the media sort of almost accepted that this is what happened, that she ended up 100 grams over the required weight. And we know, for instance, the wrestler who defeated Aman Sarawat, Noguchi, he was disqualified earlier in a different event for being 50 grams overweight. So I think that the rules are rules. I don't see a possibility for unless, as I said, there is there are things which have not yet been made public. So, and that could be possible. I'm not saying that it's not possible because, look, let's face it, Vinesh has not spoken to the media after this.
Yes.
And we don't know why. So,
Yes.
until it happens, now a whole lot of things is going, assumptions are being made based
Correct.
purely on
So
what
assumptions are being made because the facts of the matter, if there is some larger appeal that we don't know about, that is not in the public domain so far. But as far
Yeah.
as I was speaking to a nutritionist, Mr. Raman, and he was telling me how these norms perhaps need to change about this kind of way, when you talk about weight and cutting weight, this is something that could be dangerous for athletes. As far as this case is concerned, does it at least put the spotlight on the need to change norms? Because it has been going on like this for a long period of time, like my colleague Karishma was pointing out to.
Yeah, this is exactly what the World Wrestling boss actually pointed out. He said, look, wrestlers are not supposed to compete in weight categories much significantly lower than their normal body weight. And in fact, he went on to the extent of saying that this rule is so strict that they don't even give leeway for 50 grams or 100 grams, only because they want to discourage wrestlers from misusing their bodies, causing damage to their health by trying to compete in categories which are much lower than their normal weight. Vinesh's normal weight is believed to be 55 kg, and consistently she has been contesting in the 53 kg category. And now she wanted to go down even further and go down to the 50 kg category. Of course, there is always the issue we need to figure out of why she gained 2.7 kgs. Is that a normal weight gain for a wrestler or for Vinesh, particularly in during the trials or during the earlier tournaments? Lots of questions are there, but nothing to suggest that there was something which the Wrestling Federation or the Olympic Committee
Yes.
did incorrectly and disqualified her.
Right.
In fact, the Indian contingent itself has
Yes.
not made the claim that she was unfairly disqualified.
Yes, nowhere
They've
have we
only
heard
said-
that part. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So it'd be
I
interesting to
don't-
see. I mean,
yeah.
as far as this case is concerned, this court as well, and the kind of precedents that perhaps it could lay if it does rule in favor of this appeal, which, like you're saying, is highly unlikely. But if it does, then of course we'll see what unfolds. Right, Mr. Raman?
Yeah, but honestly, I have heard in the past, again, this is purely anecdotal, that some of these verdicts are also sort of, not entirely on the merits of the case. Sometimes pressure from various quarters can, can lead to verdicts in favor and so on. But those are purely anecdotal, and it could potentially be wrong. But as far as this particular case is concerned, it would open up a Pandora's box if there was a judgment which said allow 100 grams, which is not the domain of the Court of Arbitration at all. The Court of Arbitration is merely to see if the rules have been improperly applied to this particular case, causing her to lose a silver medal. Now, they can't go back and retrospectively say, no, actually, you can change all the rules
Yes.
to make sure that she gets a silver medal when the gold and the silver have already been awarded.
Right,
So
right.
I
So in
honestly
terms of
don't see, but
practices,
if
the
Harish
stated
Salve
rules-
pulls it off, he'll be a magician.
Right. So like any court, you would expect the court to assess whether rules have been followed or not, whether the laws that have been laid down that have been followed or not, and are going to interpret them to the best ability of the people sitting in judgment in that court. And we'll see exactly what does come out of this appeal. At the least, perhaps relooking the kind of rules that exist is something that the nutritionist on our show was talking about, and that could be a wider debate. But that's for the future. Mr. Raman, always a pleasure having you on the show and getting your perspective. Thanks very much for joining us on Business at 9.